Speaking with Andrew Pollard, CEO of Blackrock Silver. I don't want to talk about Blackrock yet. I want to we'll start with you, and then we'll talk about Blackrock and the financing that you just closed. So I think I first met you in 2019, if I'm not mistaken. And I remember that was an interesting time because the market was just bottoming, at least like a cycle bottom for the junior mining sector in May of 2019. And you became a new CEO at that same time. So it was quite serendipitous. But how did you get into the junior mining sector? Like, how does one find their way into this tiny corner of the global financial markets, and how does one, just suddenly become a CEO?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I mean, I got my start in mining when I was 19 years old. I had a corner office working, doing business development for an executive search firm at the time who opened up an office in Vancouver. And they wanted me to focus just on mining as a vertical industry. So I became the mining guy for what was a multinational large staffing firm. I looked old for my age and I was good on the phone. My true exposure to mining started though when I was just a child, given that my father was an institutional sales guy in Canada, one of the top brokers in Canada during the 1980s and 90s, and in fact worked with Tommy Humphreys, his father as well, who's on the call. That was my first exposure to the capital market side and the volatility that surrounds this. But I came in from a different angle. I knew about the finance side, and in fact, because of the volatility of these capital markets, especially the VSC days back then, which I lived through, he effectively forbade all of my brothers from getting involved with the stock brokerage industry. And I guess I listened to him, but I didn't quite get the message because here I am running a junior mining company, just not as a broker. When I got started, I was 19 doing business development, and I just completely immersed myself in the industry. There really was no competition at the time. This would have been in like 2005, 2006, doing staffing in the industry. I quickly sort of became the go-to guy. In fact, within a year of working for this firm, I was a very industrious and entrepreneurial kid. I didn't have a safety net given the volatility of the industry, and I knew that I was responsible for my own future. So I got tired. We grew $1 million practice in the first year, and I was going up to my counterparts in Toronto and saying, "Why are you guys getting 80% of my billings? I'm the mining guy." And here I was, just a bratty 20-year-old, and they said, "Well, if you don't like it, leave." So I guess a week before my 20th birthday, I set up shop as a company called the Mining Recruitment Group. I picked a good name for SEO purposes, search engine optimization. And I started doing executive level placements on my own under my brand. Within 6 months, I bought my first car, which was a Porsche Carrera. I worked with everyone along the way, from the Friedlands to the Justras of the world to hell, I placed the VP exploration of the BHP Billiton copper unit. I had a unique laboratory in the sense I worked behind the scenes and in the boardrooms of some of the best mining entrepreneurs in the business, working on pre-IPO exploration companies all the way up to the largest publicly traded mining company in the world. And, mining's a small industry. So over the next 15 years, I developed one hell of a little black book. I got to know everyone. And along the way, I started, for those of you that don't know about executive search, it's probably the most lucrative, unregulated professional services business you can possibly be in. A typical fee on a placement for a CEO would be, 25 to 35% of their salary and bonus. So if you make, say, 3 placements a year, you're earning what a CEO of an actual mining company would be. And I was doing a hell of a lot more than that. So I developed in my early 20s, a good following, a good network. And, I started making more and more money and started investing in companies along the way. And, my entrance into BlackRock wasn't out of inspiration. It was out of desperation because I was an unfortunate shareholder of, well, the recruitment guy ended up being so myopic on the project that Blackrock had just acquired at the time called Silver Cloud that I really didn't look at the management team involved, and it just turned into an unmitigated disaster. I put 100 grand into Blackrock in 2018. By 2019, the stock was 3 cents. It was $1 million market cap. If anyone was willing enough to put up a bid, the management hadn't moved the project forward one iota. I think they'd spent something like $2.2 million over the previous year, and all they'd done was 43 soil samples. So I had, I was pissed. It wasn't about the money. It was more about just the credibility, in the sense that a lot of my clients, some big names in the industry, also followed me into Blackrock as investors because they saw my enthusiasm surrounding our Silver Club property. And, eventually they're saying, well, what are we going to do about this? So I had a unique set of skills, as Liam Neeson said. I saw that Blackrock, had the makings of a good company, but it was lacking, the right people in place making the decisions. And I thought, okay, well, this is something I can probably try and tackle. So, it was a good laboratory for me to see if for the last 15 years of, with a business predicated on one thing, and that's that management matters, to see if it's really bullshit or not. So what I did was I just went
All
about.
right, take a breath. Take a breath, Andrew.
I
Take a
don't do
breath.
breaths.
That was a lot. We have a woman on this space, Andrew. I think this is like the second time a female has ever been on a junior mining space
My
event. So
goodness.
you are bringing the ladies, and she's very good looking too.
Well,
Hi, Rebecca. It's nice to meet you. So you said a lot there. There's a lot to unpack. So
sure.
you were making a lot of money in your 20s,
Oh yeah.
being like finding, executives and placing them in this sector. Um, I mean, can you give me an idea how much money were you making on your best year?
Oh, in my 20s in a good market, I was earning $500,000 at least. Some years, I think my best year was just slightly under $1 million, which really pissed me off because I wanted the an extra comma. But yeah, once again, coming into BlackRock wasn't about the money. The last placement I ever did was placing myself in this role, and I got to say, it's more fun on this side of the table. The recruitment business is quite transient in the sense that typical executive search, might take 1 to 3 months, and then you're on to your next project, and then you're on to your next one, and then you're on to the next one, and it's feast or famine, especially in an industry like mining. So, but I gained traction right away. I mean, one of the first placements I did was for one of Friedland's companies called Peregrine Diamonds. I placed their president. I was 21. They ended up going on to make a world-class discovery, soon after. And, I've met some really interesting, colorful characters along the way. When I was 25, I was on, I wouldn't say regular, but I was on BNN Bloomberg for the first time on commodities with Andrew Bell. And,
Well,
it's
I didn't know this about you. So that was in your 20s. And how old are you now?
oh, this is the oldest I've ever been.
Yeah.
I just turned 39.
Okay, you're still 5 years younger than me. That's amazing. You've done a lot in your life, Andrew. Wow. So fade the scene, May 2019. You're a shareholder of Blackrock Silver. Stock is dead in the water at 2.5 cents, $1 million market cap. There's some other details that we don't need to really get into. I know there was a tragic accident and
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So now you're the guy. The board says, hey, we want Andrew Pollard. So you really, this is a very memorable time. May 2019 to, I think, Beaver Creek timeframe, September, October 2019. That was like 4 or 5 month time period. Your share price went from, I think, 2.5 cents to somewhere in the 30s. So it was more than a 10x over
Mm-hmm.
4 to 5 months. Now, naturally, off a very, very, very low level.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any secrets that you can share with the audience about how you turn that around so
Sure.
fast?
Yeah, well, bakers bake, surgeons operate, and I build management teams. The first hire I did the week after I joined was bringing on Bill Howald, who's probably found more gold in Nevada than anyone living today. He used to be head of exploration for Placer Dome up until they got taken out by Barrick in '05, and he's drilled out over 100 million ounces of gold in his career. So we literally, the first hire in, and he took a huge leap of faith on me because, there was no money in the account and, wasn't really a credible story at the time, but he came in and immediately made it credible. Since then, I mean, we've built $1 billion board. I've got David Lang on here, who's chairman of Fortuna, literally a $1.2 billion company. And also, some might know that's a silver company. I brought on Edie Tomey, who's the only other board she's on is Wesdome, another $1.2 billion company. I brought along Andrew Kipe, who was the top rated silver analyst on the planet for going on a decade when he was managing director of BMO Capital Markets. We've got a who's who board, which established credibility, and I built a team, and I was smart enough to listen to them. So we did trade up quite immediately just based off of Bill's prominence, and he'd been a CEO before, but ultimately he's one hell of an explorationist and developer, and he's in the role doing exactly what he does best, leaving me to deal with people like you on a daily basis. And but what he did was he brought us Tonopah, right, as which became our flagship effectively right away. And I guess we did our deal on that in February of 2020, right as the world was shutting down for COVID. Silver had tanked. We got a hell of a deal on it. And I guess maybe 13 months after joining, on the back of my first drill hole into Tonopah, we went from 3 cents to an all-time high of 162 based off of this one drill hole. And, we've been having fun ever since, aside from the
and
market.
You announced that drill hole on my birthday in 2020, and I'll never forget it. And especially the P&L that I saw that day. So thank you for that.
Yeah, well, it was your birthday, and it also coincided with the day that silver hit $30, which, from my perspective, was the best of times and worst of times, because obviously we've been fighting the market ever since.
Yeah, it's funny. I visited Tonopah 2 weeks later to meet Bill and see Suma as well. It was my first time to Tonopah, and that was literally the week that gold and silver topped. So I was, I was a bearish omen that I made that trip during the pandemic year 2020. I remember standing out there by 100 meters from the cemetery there, talking to Bill Howald with a mask on in the middle of nothing, standing 10 feet away from him with a mask on, as crazy as that was. But Tonopah is a great place, and that was quite a coup to acquire that project and have the results that you did so early on. So you said Baker's Bake and you assemble management teams. So I think that's an important concept that I'm not sure all investors really understand, how important it is to assemble the right management team. And there's a lot of factors in it. And the management team that you've assembled is pretty dynamic. So Chairman Bill Howald, tell us about him and how important it was to get him on board so early.
Well, I mean, it was life-changing for the fortunes of the company, and certainly for me personally. And luckily, we get along really, really well, and it's been just a truly phenomenal relationship. Here we are coming up on our 5th anniversary of both jumping in. He joined 1 week after I did. On the back of his news, we went from, I joined at 3 cents. When he joined, the stock went up to 10 cents. And, it was him. He's literally, once again, I mean, this guy's drilled out 100 million ounces of gold throughout his career, plus now 100 million ounces of silver equivalent on the silver side as well. And he's the one that generated through his network the Tonopah West opportunity, and it was perfect timing from our perspective on that as well, because we're well aware that there were some big companies looking at it, but because of COVID, the world shut down and people couldn't get to sites, and it was truly a David and Goliath sort of thing. The Goliaths of the world had all of just levels of bureaucracy they had to get through and do site visits and stuff. And Bill was 3 hours away in Reno, and we signed a deal right as silver had, during COVID, silver crashed from $20 down to $12. I think when we signed the deal, it was around $12 or $13. And if you look at, other sort of peers, I mean, we'll own Tonopah 100% outright whenever we choose to make our final payment on it. But the total amount that we got this project for was $3 million US. I mean, it was priced as if there was no ounces there. In 3 short years, we've drilled at 100 million. We're showing easy expansion potential for another to double that effectively without really the need to step out anymore. So yeah, it's his expertise both in terms of managing crews, his networks in terms of getting drillers, and we get grandfathered rates, but also his network in terms of generating the opportunity itself. It's he's truly tied in. I mean, this guy was president of the Nevada Geological Society, or Geologic Society of Nevada. I mean, he's truly well known. I doubt there's anyone in Nevada that's found more gold than he has at this point. And he joined us at $1 million with a leap of faith.
Yeah, so he's the operations guy on the ground down there in Tonopah, and he knows that state like the back of his hand, and he knows all the mining people in the state extremely well, and that gives you I know it gives you a lot of advantages. I'm not sure most people do understand exactly how important that is, because he can get a crew when other companies can't, because he knows everyone in the state. They're his friends. They've got a long track record, with one another, and it gives you lower costs to drill. It gives you a lot of advantages, and
he's
that
also, another thing that differentiates him. And keep in mind, I've placed a ton of VP explorations. I've placed a ton of geologists throughout my career, is that Bill brings to the table full cycle experience. He's not just an exploration geologist. He's also an engineer. He's a geologic engineer. So he's the best of both, in the sense that everything he does is always looking at how to optimize this towards a real development operation. I mean, he's worked in producing environments, he's worked in greenfield environments, and he's taken projects from discovery through to production. And these were big discoveries. So, that's what you're getting, is someone that understands the full business side of it too, because a lot of geos just like to be left alone with their models, or, play with the rocks. He's a business person. He's the perfect
play
blend.
with the rocks. Yeah. They do like to play with the rocks. So the early days, 2019, 2020, timing was impeccable. And there was, it's that phrase, it's like pouring a bottle of whiskey into the shot glass, and you sign the deal on Tonopah West April 2020 at the freaking exact low. Fed and Treasury dump in trillions of dollars over the next 6 months, and silver, the juniors go parabolic. You also start to go parabolic, and then you drill a grand slam home run there during the summer, and it gets you to that 162 share price. So from 2.5 cents May of 2019 to 162 summer of 2020, absolutely incredible move. You couldn't do better. Nobody could do better than that share price run, and a lot of it was your skill, in your experience, your savvy, and some of it was luck, no doubt. Fade the scene. There's been 3.5 years since that peak in summer of 2020. Before I get into what Blackrock is planning for 2024, I want to ask you, almost 5 years as a CEO, what are the biggest things that you've learned over the last 5 years?
Well, we hit our all-time high on the back of one drill hole back in 2020. We married it with a perfect market. Silver had gone from low of $12 in March of 2020 to $30 when we released that. So I've been on both ends of the spectrum, where I've been completely overvalued based just on speculation. And here we are, the pendulum has swung completely to the other side now, because we've backstopped our valuation with 100 million ounces at easily the highest grades of any large undeveloped project in the industry. And intrinsic values are just completely decoupled from the market. So, we've gone from overvalued based on spec to undervalued on any measured based on actual intrinsic value. And what I can tell you is, I sure sleep a hell of a lot better at night now than I did back then, because back then, Sure, it was exciting, but you knew that it could have been a house of cards because, as soon as some sentiment changes, there's nothing backstopping you. Here, this is the real deal. And it's the train's left the station, it's on a track, and it's got a destination. And I think we built something or drilled out something that any silver company and probably most gold companies would want to get their hands on. So, there's a confidence here. It's a quiet confidence. Um, that we've got something. This is truly one of the best silver discoveries of the last decade, and we've done it quicker and cheaper than anyone in the industry.
Is there a part of you that would just be like, man, that was so much fun in 2019 and 2020 that it'd be nice to just get into another super early stage type of setup with a 5 million market cap and do it all over again? Is there a part of you that wants to, like, man, this is a little harder now because we've got a resource, we've got a bigger market cap, we've got more shares out, we've got investors want more and more always? Is there a part of you that's like, it'd be more fun to go back to those days, and
No,
have that
but
2 cent to.
No, but I mean, listen, for whenever we do BlackRock 2.0, once BlackRock 1.0 has sailed off into the sunset with everyone making some serious money along the way. The second time, I'm going to compress everything I've learned over the last 5 years and do it even quicker. I was quite green when I started. Now I've seen all different markets. I know what works, I know what doesn't, and we've always focused. We get good projects. And that's it. Always, going back to what we were talking about earlier about people. Well, mining companies are three things: it's people, it's projects, and capital. You don't get capital without the people and the right projects. And this is a formula that, no, I don't. I'm not looking to go on start a whole bunch of other deals. I'm not looking to go on a bunch of other boards. I'm one of the largest shareholders in the company here, and I see generational wealth if we get this one right. So I'm going to be with this steering the ship until it's either built or until it's bought for a big premium. And I see, I think all market participants underestimated the extent to which the Fed rate hike cycle would crush valuations, especially in the silver industry, because everyone knows the best thing about silver is also the worst, and that's the volatility. Well, we've seen the volatility on the way up in a good market. We've certainly seen the highly levered volatility on the way down. But right now, we've got a standout project. There's not many true silver projects that are large in the industry to begin with. We've got the highest grade one of them all, and we're unequivocally in the best jurisdiction of the world. So our mineralization's been there for 21
The
million
best
years.
jurisdiction in the world. Wow, that's a big statement. Are you sure about that?
Well, Nevada is seen as a good jurisdiction, but Tonopah is unique. Tonopah is not just Nevada, it's private land in Nevada. There's no permitting overhang with our stock. We don't have to deal with the federal government
The
on
private
anything.
land. Is it all private land, or some of it is land management land?
No, we've got all of our resource area and our expansion potential is on our private land claims, and that's important because the federal government doesn't come into play whatsoever in terms of permitting. Even
Okay.
from the environmental level, Nevada's the only state to have its
Yeah.
own EPA. So what that means is that for a normal company, what may take 3 to 6 years for a permitting process would probably take us 3 to 6 months when the decision's made to go underground and get
Okay.
things moving. So
Yeah, I want to
yeah,
open the floor to some questions, and then while people are getting ready to ask you a question, Andrew, I want to ask you. You just closed a bought deal private placement, $5.75 million, and so now you've got a good chunk of cash. It was at 20 cents a share, with with a half warrant at 30 cents. Currently, the share price is 23.5 cents, about a $45 million market cap in Canada. What's the plan for 2024? Where do you spend this money to maximize shareholder value, and how do you turn that 45 million back into 150, where you were in August 2020?
sure. Well, in I've had a slide in my chart, sorry, yeah, in my deck, since we came out with a maiden resource in I think it was May of 2022, right at the beginning of the rate hike cycle. And what's interesting is that my ounces at the time, along with their other high grade peers like Vizsla and Dolly Varden, all of our ounces were trading for about 250 US per ounce in the ground. Today, our ounces are trading for 40 cents an ounce in the ground, and our other peers are 80 cents an ounce in the ground. That just shows you the extent to which asset valuations have been crushed in the industry, just on the back of the Fed rate hike cycle. So I guess it depends on what your outlook is on gold and silver, especially with rate cuts seemingly imminent, whether it's March or May or this year. I mean, that's sort of, that's just patience and timing. But, once money starts flowing back in, we're like a levered call option on the price of silver. It's just that we're trading at a significant discount to our two other high grade peers, despite being higher grade, despite having easier metallurgy, despite being in a better jurisdiction. And I think that discount was simply related to our lack of capital, which we just addressed. I think people could smell that we needed money because we've always done a lot with a little. But we just completed the first bought deal in the silver space since July of last year. The last couple that were done turned into unmitigated disasters for the underwriters as well, where they were caught holding the bag and having to sell it out. Ours was upsized twice. And I guess, I hate the valuation. Obviously, it makes me sick. I've got 5 million shares of this thing, but I'm excited at the prospects of what we can do with it. So, we've got 100 million ounces. We're turning an operational view towards this now. We've got something that we see as, clear standalone at this point. I mean, we're past that point. So now we're looking at how to de-risk it, how to move it forward. So right now we've got background engineering studies underway. We're looking at conceptual mine plans. We're looking at where a decline would go. We're looking at where process plant would go. Something else we're doing is we're looking at hydrologic studies. It's sort of, people think Nevada is barren of water. It is effectively a big arid high desert. But there's a lot of water. In fact, the reason why Tonopah opportunity existed for us was that the last mine in the district, which was right on the eastern edge of our property, they mined it down to around 1,880 feet. And as they went deeper and deeper, they got below the water table and they flooded it out, leaving where they stopped mining it. It was 24 meters thick, the vein. So, we're picking up right where these old timers left off. But one of the things we're looking at this year is potential to re-infiltrate, i.e. pump out the water, process it, and use that as our main source of water. In addition, which may negate the need to even look at further water rights beyond that. Though, we're looking at it through an operational lens. In addition, one of the nice things that's emerged through our understanding of the model and our recent drilling, was that our highest grade vein, called the Bermuda vein, is also our shallowest, and it's among our thickest. Now, what makes this even more exciting is the fact that that Bermuda vein is right where we were always intending to put a decline, which would be effectively the entrance to the mine. And you want to, you want the mine sort of the center, a decline wants to be in the center of gravity of the deposit. Well, this is the center of gravity for our deposit from what we've drilled out. We think it would be a great spot. And guess what? If our first vein is our shallowest and thickest and highest grade, that's going to have huge positive consequences for whatever economic studies or what a producing operation would be from a payback perspective. So we see potential to add a lot of more significant tonnage, high grade tons close to surface on that, which we think we can drill out quickly and cheaply. So we've got money now to look at getting the drills back probably in spring or early summer, focused on adding the lowest hanging ounces there. And from there, I mean, we've got the way our last resource was done is we've got, it's effectively one big vein corridor, but we drilled out that if you're to trace along the various deposits, represents 4 kilometers of strike. Well, these 3 deposits had big gaps between the zones. So of that 4 kilometers, only 2.5 kilometers of that strike potential combined made it into the resource, meaning we still got a 1.5 kilometers yet to drill out to tie together the whole system. And that's something that is also excites us. That said, it's also something that, any corporate that's under the hood right now, they'll be able to get to 200 million ounces pretty easily without any real leaps in logic, because we've drilled into these veins already. We know they're there. We just didn't have the density to include them in this last resource, but that's the definition of low-hanging fruit. So, so it's going to be dual focus this year: drilling and de-risking, and we see potential to have a PEA on it. We'd be moving in that direction potentially, around this time next year or soon thereafter.
Okay, so the goal is to drill it out, add some more tonnage to the resource, do a PEA Q1 2025.
We've got some metallurgies. We've got some further metallurgical testing we want to do too. I mean, this is I like to say we've already had a 7.5 million ton met test on a property, because that's what the Tonopah district produced, and our Victor mine produced about a third, accounted for about a third of that tonnage. So we know the metallurgy is already good. All of that production came from just a stamp mill. You process it, you're left with gold, silver, and beach sand. So it's highly cyanide soluble, but we see potential to slightly ratchet up the average recoveries. I think, our initial studies lined up really well with the historic records, but we see potential to bring some more modern technology to the mix, and see our recoveries ratchet up, which naturally means more ounces.
All right, we've got a question from one of the listeners. I've activated your speaker. Padel fan? I've activated your speaker. You have a question for Andrew? Padel fan. Okay. All right. I guess
sorry, that was a mistake. So I don't know what happened, but I didn't want to raise my hand.
Sorry. Okay, got it. No worries. All right. So I'm going to throw one more at you, Andrew. I've been to Tonopah 3 times in the last 4 years. I think it's a fantastic location. I can't really think of any environmental challenges. I don't think there's any spotted owls that are mating right there or something. But support of the local population is absolutely essential in mining. If you don't have support from the locals, you're dead in the water. It doesn't matter how good your resource is or who you are. Tell us about your local population there in Tonopah, people that you've met, conversations that you've had. Have you been asked, hey, are you guys going to be mining here? Are you going to be building a mine? Is this going to affect my quality of life?
Well, no, listen, our deposit straddles 2 counties, Nye and Esmeralda, and these are 2 of the most pro-mining counties in Nevada, which is one of the most pro-mining states you could possibly have. There's, this is going to be a very small footprint underground mine, and it's far away from town in the sense that the town is actually cut off by something called Brower Mountain, and we're on the other side of Brower Mountain. So we're completely removed, but we also benefit from all of the infrastructure already in place. That's one of the best things about our project. The highway that connects Vegas to Reno cuts right across our property. I like to say I've got 100 million ounces silver equivalent across the street from Burger King, because I actually do. It's very similar to the setup in Val-d'Or. That's another epic mining jurisdiction in Quebec. There's a project just south of us. It directly abuts our property. It's a completely different system than we're on. It's owned by a company called Westvault, which has the Three Hills and Hasbrook deposits. They're federally permitted on BLM land to do a big open pit mine, well, 2 open pit mining operations. Those are big footprints. Ours is private land and small footprints. So no, we don't see any issues there, but the town of Tonopah is hugely supportive. When we started drilling there, the amount of influx they had from all the drillers, all the consultants, they said that, I forget the revenue number it created, but just through all of the taxes and stuff and people spending money, it led to them being able to afford to fix the sidewalks in front of their flagship hotels there, which are the Mizpah and the Belvada Hotel. So the Tonopah, I guess, town council are huge supporters. And I mean, Robert, you've been there. You've toured the Tonopah Mining Park, which is this great historic mining museum directly overlooking our big Victor headframe. I mean, the reason the town of Tonopah is there in the first place is because of the silver discoveries. But, you know, you go to our side of the district, there's really nothing at surface other than along the highway. And, you know, that's actually unique. You know, I'd say 90% of our project is completely undeveloped land, which gives some other unique options downline too. I mean, you know, once we buy the project out, we'll control the land rights there too. And, you know, hell, you know, obviously once we figure out where a process plant and mill is going to go, maybe there's potential to do some commercial real estate development or something. As you know, Tonopah is not just the silver district. It's emerging as the Carlin trend of lithium as well, in the sense that 3 of the 4 largest lithium resources on the planet are within, one of them is directly abutting our project to the north, owned by American Lithium. So, you know, this is the mining state. This is the silver state. The reason Nevada is known as the silver state is because of Tonopah and the Comstock Lode. Tonopah's got the most silver, is the most silver-rich district in all of the silver state, and it's one of the most consequential mining discoveries in all of Nevada history. In fact, the guy who discovered it, one of the guys, his name was Tasker Oddie, 10 years later became governor of the state. I think the town is very much in favor, I think, and very excited at the prospects of silver coming back.
Yeah, I've been there 3 times. It's always a good experience. I like that drive up from Vegas, just the open country there. And every time I go there, the locals tell me to spend more money. So, hey.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's seen a resurgence. I mean, you know, the Mizpah, so, you know, 100 years ago, Tona would have been the center of gravity of Nevada. The Mizpah Hotel, which is this very classic mining boomtown hotel, up until the 1940s was the tallest building in the entire state. You know, Howard Hughes came through there and consolidated a bunch of the district in the 1960s, and he actually got married to his second wife, who was a movie star, at an old hotel in Tonopah. So, I mean, just the historical, Mark Twain was through there. Hell, Wyatt Earp was a deputy sheriff on our property and ran the Northern Saloon there. It's the Wild West, but, you know, it's seen a resurgence in the sense that these hotels have been consolidated by a big, it's called the Klein family. They own the Klein Winery in Napa, and they've bought and refurbished these hotels, and now it's a major tourist destination as well, driven by the mining legacy. And I think, you know, when this project moves forward, and it can move forward quickly, certainly if it was in a mid-tier major's hands, they'd be underground already, because, you know, it could be developed concurrently. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when at this point and who, but that's also the opportunity here.
Yeah, I mean, every time I go there, I think about, you know, Westfall, Summa, Blackrock, a couple of other smaller players in the area, and I'm like, man, they just roll up the whole thing, just take the whole district. You know,
that's what someone will do.
Super major company should just take the whole thing.
Yeah, well, this is a tier 1 mining camp now. You know, we've got 100 million ounces. You can easily daylight 200 without any leaps in logic. You've got Westfault next to us, which is 1 million ounces of gold. You've got Allegiant, has their east side deposit about 10 kilometers away. It's another 1 million ounces. This is a tier 1 mining camp. So, you know, someone could come in and turn just a couple of screws, and all of a sudden you've got a big high-grade underground vein system, process plant, mill, and then you've got string of pearls, bulk tonnage gold deposits all scattered around. You know, this becomes Palmarejo, which is core mining's cash cow, very quickly, you know, with that similar setup.
All right, Andrew, fantastic conversation. I think it's very interesting. I look forward to a follow-up in a few months, hopefully some good news to talk about. You haven't drilled your best hole yet, right? You haven't drilled your best hole yet. So you know, we've got a big upside to shoot for. You've got to top that summer 2020 hole.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, the best hole is always in the future. Our model's predictive at this point, right? The difference between us in 2021, our initial drill hole, it deviated like way off course, and it augured right into the guts of the system. Like, you know, the old timers did no drilling, so it's not like it was a director's hole where you go in and twin something, you know it's going to be good. Our thing deviated, and it was just pure grace. But the difference between now and then is back then it was a lot of feeling around with the drill bit, and we didn't quite know which way things were running. Now we do. We've got 150,000 meters of drilling under our belts now, and we know where these things are. It's just a matter of time and money. But here we are. We're backstopped by 100 million ounces in the ground. We're trading at 40 cents, half of what our two other high grade peers are. And I think the only real black mark against us has now been settled. We've got cash. We can drive this thing forward. And the re-rate, when it comes, when sentiment turns, will be violent. Except this way, it'll be on the violent on the way up as opposed to violence on the way down.
Yeah, let's do a repeat of summer 2020. Thanks a lot, Andrew. This was a fantastic conversation. And until next time, hope you have a great day. Talk soon.
Thanks.